Today's gospel, we have Jesus commenting on the lack of humility on the part of the leading Pharisees. He says a parable of those who are invited take the place of the least honor. And so if you take the place of the greatest honor and someone comes forward, you're going to have to go with embarrassment back to the lowest place. But if you take the lowest place, the person might come and say, "Come, my friend, come up higher," and then he'll take you up to the place of honor. Again, one of the problems with people held in great esteem at that time in the religious leaders, the Pharisees, is that they didn't start out to be lack of humility or loving money and loving all these kinds of loving accolades and all these kinds of things, but it kind of came with the job, and so they didn't react well. The one thing that you don't want to do with humility is you don't want to somehow try to force humility. There's nothing, to my way of thinking, there's nothing worse than somebody who's trying to be humble, someone who's in a position of leadership and refusing to lead, or in a position of authority and acquiescing to everybody. There was a friend of mine who's a pastor who said that one parish where they had a situation where the pastor, in order to get him to change his mind, all you had to do was say, "Well, Father, so-and-so thinks this," or the amorphous they, they think that that's not a good idea. "Oh, okay, I'll change, maybe I should go back on that decision." And so no decision was ever made because he wouldn't take the responsibility. So again, when we think about humility, Moses is called the most humble man on earth, and Moses is certainly not a doormat. If Moses was a doormat, they would have walked all over him on the way back to Egypt in the desert. But again, it's the fact that Moses knew who was God and he wasn't. Moses knew that his authority was from God and not from his prowess as an orator or his great skills at people skills, or his great wisdom, or his great all this kind of thing, that all of those were from God. And so that's why Moses was called the most humble on the earth. But he certainly took leadership. He certainly was, when called to lead, certainly was powerful in his leadership. But again, thinking that it wasn't just because, God blessed and highly favored me because I'm so wonderful, it was the fact that he realized who the power and who the wisdom and who all these things were from. They were from God, given to him. And so it could be taken away. If they're given, they can certainly be taken away. And so he certainly had that humility. The other thing is, in a parable, it says, that when you're invited, don't choose the ones that can give you back, because they might, if you choose the ones who are the wealthy, the ones who are the ones held in high esteem, all these kind of people that are there, they could return the favor, but instead invite those who cannot pay you back. When you hold a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind. Blessed indeed will you be by their inability to repay you. I think one of the things is that it helps us to have that kingdom way of thinking. There was a pastor again in a parish, and he was in a very multicultural parish. And what he said is that the parish was like a slice of heaven, in that there would be people from all races, all nationalities, all economic status, all these kinds of things would be there in heaven. So it's not just going to be, the people who look like you, act like you, dress like you, think like you, but it will be all kinds of people who will be invited. And so what the Lord Jesus is inviting us to do is to think with that kingdom mentality, not just okay, well, if I invite so and so, then in reciprocity, they'll invite me back and I will be held in higher esteem because, after all, I'm going to this person's party, and I can always name drop and say that I'm going to this person's party or event. But instead, what he's saying is that you need to invite everybody, because guess what? In heaven, they will all be there. They will be coming from the east, the west, and the north, and the south. Thanks, and God bless.